Chris Hansen reminds me of the wizard from The Wizard of Oz, the one with the reputation of being the great and powerful wizard, who Dorothy and her friends spend the entire movie journeying to seek help from. Then when they finally meet him, they realize he's just some random-ass dude behind a curtain with no real power. Yeah, that's Chris Hansen, and the curtain is his integrity. Hello everybody, it's been quite a moment, hasn't it? I apologize for my absence. I have been in the process of moving. As you can see, I'm not in the same location anymore, and doing so has been quite chaotic for the past few weeks. So if you haven't already watched Creepshow Art's video, which I will be linking in the description below, and you should definitely go watch it, I am a little bit, just a little bit fed up with Chris Hansen. I had a lot of faith that he was going to be extremely helpful towards the Onision situation, considering he was the face of Dateline NBC's To Catch a Predator, and he had a lot of prestigious credibility, or so we thought. But as somebody who has been very openly critical of people like Onision and Davi Vanity, and somebody who has been trying to warn her viewers to not come into contact with people like them, I feel a personal responsibility to explain why I no longer support Chris Hansen. This has unfortunately been going on for months, where his true colors have been rising to the surface, and people have been realizing what his true motivations are. Chris Hansen is not somebody who is passionate about seeking justice for the survivors of people like Onision and Davi Vanity. Chris Hansen is more motivated by self-serving purposes and monetary gain, and just realizing that in general sucks. It really sucks, because so many of us have put so much hope and so much faith into Chris to try and bring justice to a situation that has been going on for over 10 years. He has made so many promises that Onision was going to be put behind bars, that Onision was finally going to receive the justice that so many people have been seeking for all of these years, and all of these promises over the past few months have been seeming emptier and emptier. It is emphasized by so many scandalous situations that Chris has been either directly or indirectly involved with. And while I haven't been supporting Chris Hansen for months, the straw that broke the camel's back, and what is causing me to make this video now, is the fact that he is trying to sell the rights to the Onision story. So let's knock a few of these issues right out of the ballpark. As Creepshow mentioned in her video, which again is linked below, Chris was fired from NBC in 2013 after some infidelity scandal, which led him to starting a Kickstarter for a new program where he investigates online predators, to which a lot of people supported, and he raised almost $90,000, but allegedly ended up abandoning the project without refunding anybody. And the production value of his Onision streams created years later doesn't quite seem to have the set value of 90 grand. Like, damn, that must be one expensive mic you have. There's also a situation where Chris was in some legal trouble after writing a series of bad checks due to financial struggles, and a man named Romanik donated $13,000 to Chris in order to get the charges dropped.
But I just thought, Chris Hansen, not a perfect guy, but a decent guy trying to save children's lives through these predators. And I just felt compelled, out of memory and respect for my son and all the parents who have lost a child to a pedophilia situation, I just felt compelled to do that. He didn't reach out to me, I reached out to him, and I just thought it was the right thing to do.
Chris had no previous knowledge of this man, and being the investigative journalist he claims to be, he had done no research before accepting this donation. Good thing this guy who donated didn't do anything horrifically absurd or terrible which could affect Chris Hansen's credibility as a public figure.
I'm not a racist. I don't like that no good greasy son of a bitch. That's not hatred in the community. It's not hatred for the blacks. It's hatred for him and his actions. He said that I was disrespectful for calling him a n***. I say, the waka flocka, I call him a n*** because that's a disrespectful term to a disrespectful person. I'm far from being a racist. I'm a proud white man. And if he thinks that that thug ass of his scares me, he's got another thing coming.
Then there was the Ice Poseidon incident. I'll leave a link below to an excellent video that covered this situation entirely. Ice Poseidon was a streamer who had some questionable association with an alleged minor, and Chris was highly invested in this case. He was getting ready to do a full investigation on Ice Poseidon, similar to the Onision videos, until this little video came out.
Hey, listen, Chris, how about this? I know you are trying to grow your YouTube channel and get motherfucking become a streamer or whatever the I have no idea. How about this? Why don't you come to Europe with me? Then you can really understand who I really am and what I do. All right, we got a nice comfy bunk bed for you riding the trip. All right, I know you're in debt a little bit with, I don't know, whatever you got arrested for scamming mugs or something. So, bro, we can pay that off. Come on the trip.
Interestingly enough, when it came time to report on the situation as planned, Chris claims that there were some technical issues with his stream. They were not going to continue covering this as planned, however, they were going to take some questions that seemed to conveniently paint Ice Poseidon in a positive light, or at least a less gory light. This reminds me of the Jeffree Star interview in some ways. Chris and Jeffree spoke quite a bit before the interview took place, and by the time it aired, it felt like Chris was letting Jeffree run the entire show. He was asking him very easy questions, poisoning the well while mentioning criticisms.
Everybody has an opinion about you, this case, me, and this interview. And I've had suggestions and people tell me how to conduct this interview, and my philosophy on conducting interviews is to be a good listener.
And basically watching Jeffree lie his ass off for 30 minutes straight without questioning him on anything that he said. He has Jeffree Star on his live stream complaining about people like me and Creepshow Art and anybody who is criticizing Jeffree Star for being associated with Davi Vanity and not saying anything. And then he has the audacity to say,
no offense or shade to what, you know, we call them drama channels, Chris, in the YouTube world, or people that report news. A lot of people do not have great intentions. A lot of people are making money off of this story, and I think that's wrong.
And then later,
and I take this responsibility very seriously, and the question comes up, you know, should you do a GoFundMe for the victims? Should you support them through some of the super chat donations? It gets a little complicated for money that comes into the show, the monetization, to give that directly to the victims for a lot of ethical reasons. What we are taking a good look at, and what we are ultimately going to do, is put together, either through sponsorship or a couple different things that we're looking at, a way for people who appear on the show, survivors, I like to say, not victims, to get counseling and therapy that is so important.
really, Chris? One of the biggest voices in this situation, Sarah, was advised by Chris to send him and Vince her laptop so that he could send it to the FBI after she showed that it had proof of Kai sending inappropriate images while Sarah was still a minor. While she was being told it was being investigated by the FBI, Vincent, a man that Chris hired, left it sitting around for months and even claimed to have tampered with it, essentially obliterating any chance of that being credible evidence against Onision and Kai. Vincent had also gotten himself involved in several other scandals, turning the entire Onision investigation into a complete joke, eventually resulting in Chris having no choice but to terminate Vince's involvement with the investigation. Speaking of messing up investigations, you remember that episode of South Park ripping on Chris Hansen? At the end of the episode, they end up luring hundreds of pedophiles in the auditorium, where one by one they off themselves once they realize they've been caught. You know, up until this year, I always thought, oh, that's just South Park being South Park and adding a whole thing to be edgy. Yeah, it turns out they weren't that far off from an incident that actually happened back in 2006. I'm going to leave another video in the description that does a great deep dive on this subject, but basically Chris and his crew baited a man named Louis Conrad, an assistant district attorney from Texas. Authorities showed up in his home to arrest him, where he ended up offing himself. Now, the sketchy thing about this is the fact that Chris and his crew didn't get the appropriate permissions to go through with this operation. More importantly, police discovered that they didn't have enough evidence to convict him of any crimes. Chris's lawyer and friend, a person he actually brought onto his YouTube live streams about Onision, Mike Morse, has been in some of his own scandals regarding sexual assault. This is on record too. There were legal cases and everything about this. How can you claim to be so passionate about the victims of Davi and Onision while publicly being close with somebody who has their own sexual allegations themselves? So So after I uploaded my video about Davi Vanity in March, a few people had contacted me and informed me about an extremely concerning situation going on behind the scenes, and I had no idea what to do about it. Before this point, I've never actually had to contact a higher authority over something like this. Being extremely naive and not knowing where to turn, I assumed that Chris Hansen had to have some authoritative contacts, considering he would always brag about it in every Onision update. So I tried my hardest to get in contact with him, which I did. Thanks to a lot of people who had sent my public tweet towards him, he got in contact with me. So I sent him the information that others have sent to me. I expressed that I am extremely concerned and that I'm not sure what to do. Should I contact authorities? And he responds with, "Can we have a call to discuss this further?" And in my head, I'm like, well, that's pretty much everything I have, so there's nothing for me to really discuss more. But I responded with, yeah, of course, we can have a conversation. Would you like to conversate through Skype? How do you want to talk? And then he never got back to me. I waited a few days thinking, oh, maybe he forgot. I'm not the type of person that's gonna beg you to talk to me. I already felt like I was doing that by tagging him on Twitter and saying, hey, can someone get me in contact with him? You're either gonna get back to me or you're not. And in the process of waiting for him to respond to me, I was trying to contact police departments, I was trying to contact authorities that I was getting nowhere with. Then I was discussing with Creepshow how defeated I had felt, and she showed me how to submit a tip to the FBI. And it was actually extremely easy to do. I did it online. It took maybe about 45 minutes for me to write everything out and put all my information in. Chris makes you think that he has some sort of contacts in his back pocket and he has some sort of power over the investigations and he has some power over the story, but he doesn't. He's just some guy. And it was in that moment that I realized that Chris wasn't passionate about trying to help survivors of predatory people. He wasn't passionate about trying to seek justice or preventing another situation from happening. He didn't care. And he most importantly takes advantage of the survivors telling their stories. Chris Hansen has sold his rights to the Onision story to Investigation Discovery. That's right, folks. Chris, I care about the victims Hansen, the guy who everybody was rooting for to bring justice to the Onision situation, has sold his rights of the story to a TV program. Just let that sink in. And if he does this with the Onision story, what's stopping him from doing it with the Davi case as well? Great job, Chris. You've turned a situation that had an actual potential to turn into an investigation into a fucking joke. You were not motivated by the passion to seek justice for the survivors. How the hell could anybody even believe you care about them at this point? You couldn't be to give a shit about helping anybody just as much as you couldn't be to do any research on your own. The only thing that motivates you are self-serving purposes, and everybody is opening their eyes to it. This is Chris Hansen's response to the situation.
Let me be very, very clear here. Anyone that is suggesting that such a project would take place without the consideration of, the consultation with, or the participation of the victims in this case is either ill-informed, lying to you.
That is complete bullshit. Not every survivor of Onision or Davi is on board with this, and claiming that anybody who points that out is either lying or misinformed is not only a slap in the face to everybody who sees through it, but also a slap in the face to any victim who is not okay with what's going on.
Or more likely, trying to gin up drama for their own selfish reasons, to promote their own drama channels.
Huh, that sounds familiar.
We call them drama channels, Chris, in the YouTube world, or people that report news.
I have had over the past several weeks discussions about a television project on the Onision case.
Wait, so which is it, Chris? Did you give the rights away or not?
A lot of this noise is merely drama.
Okay, boomer, yeah, boomer. Whatever you say, boomer.
Television has the potential to take this to a wider audience and to increase the potential that we will see justice here.
Wait, did he just say that bringing it to TV would help bring justice to the Onision investigation? Are you serious? Yeah, forget about the authorities, forget about the FBI.
There's nothing wrong with that. I get that a lot of you think that YouTube and social media is the only way to go. I see it a little differently. Please respect that. I've also been asked to look into the Davi Vanity case, which I have done, am doing, and will continue to do so.
Is that him publicly alluding to the idea that he is also trying to do this with the Davi Vanity situation? That was a question, not a statement. However, again, I don't see what would necessarily be stopping him from doing the same thing with the Davi Vanity situation if he's doing this with Onision.
The victims will always come first. Always, always, always.
People are done with you. People are fed up with your bullshit. Calling you a disappointment is a true understatement. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Please make sure that you're staying subscribed and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and if you very much feel so inclined, Patreon as well. All will be linked in the description below. Thank you so much to everybody who has been supporting me on Patreon. And yeah, see you guys later.
If I could call Chris Hansen an asshole licking dick fart to his face, I would be so happy.